Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we've got to talk about one of the most intriguing names in this entire free agency class, and that is Azura Stevens. And when I say intriguing, I don't just mean from a talent standpoint. I'm talking about fit, market value, timing, and honestly, leverage, because Azura Stevens is in a very interesting position right now in her career. Now, let's be clear right off the bat. She's not just a free agent. She's one of the top-tier forwards available. A stretch big who can defend, rebound, and space the floor is not easy to find in today's WNBA. That archetype is valuable, and teams know it. So when you combine that with her experience, her championship pedigree, and the fact that she's entering what is realistically her prime years, yeah, this is going to be a hot market, a very hot market. And one thing that immediately stands out, she was not selected by an expansion franchise. That matters because that means she is fully available, fully in control of her destination, and there are going to be multiple teams lining up with real offers, not fake interest, real offers. Now, let's address the obvious situation first, the Los Angeles Sparks, because I think at this point, the probability of her returning there is extremely low. And it's not even about disrespect, it's just about logic. You look at that roster. You've got Cameron Brink, who is absolutely going to be a starter. There's no debate there. She's a cornerstone piece. Then you've got Dearica Hamby, who has been one of their most consistent and impactful players. So where exactly does Azura fit in that starting lineup long term? It becomes very murky. And beyond that, the Sparks situation hasn't exactly been competitive. Azura Stevens is a champion. She won a title with the Chicago Sky, and since joining the Sparks, there hasn't been much postseason success. For a player at this stage of her career, that matters. Winning matters. So when you see her social media activity, liking posts, hinting at other destinations, even screenshotting things, it's not random. Players don't do that by accident. That's calculated. That's someone who is at least exploring, if not already mentally moving on. Now, one of the teams heavily linked in all of this is the Indiana Fever. And honestly, from a basketball standpoint, the fit makes a lot of sense. You pair her with Caitlin Clark, with Aaliyah Boston, with Kelsey Mitchell. That's a dynamic core. Think about it structurally. Caitlin Clark thrives with spacing. She needs players who can stretch the floor, who don't clog the paint, who can operate without needing the ball constantly. Azura Stevens fits that profile perfectly. She can shoot, she can cut, she can defend multiple positions, and most importantly, she doesn't need to dominate possessions to be effective. That's huge. But, and this is where things get complicated, it all comes down to money. Because in free agency, fit is great, opportunity is great, but money is usually the deciding factor. If another team comes in with a near-max or max-level offer, the Fever might not be able to match that. And that's just the reality of the current cap structure, especially with the anticipation of a new CBA and potential financial shifts in the league. Teams are being careful. Some are aggressive, and if Azura commands, let's say, top-tier money, Indiana might simply get priced out. Now, could she take a pay cut to join a contender or a high-profile situation? It's possible, but it's unlikely. Players at her level, at her stage, typically don't leave money on the table unless the competitive upside is overwhelming. And that brings us to another team in the conversation, the Dallas Wings. Now, on paper, you could argue there's appeal there. You've got Paige Beckers potentially becoming the face of that franchise, and yes, players want to play with elite talent. That's real. But the problem is everything else. The infrastructure questions, the uncertainty around facilities, the overall direction of the franchise. It's not stable, and players notice that. Free agents care about environment just as much as they care about teammates. So even if Dallas offers competitive money, the decision isn't automatic because you're not just choosing a contract, you're choosing a situation. You're choosing visibility, development, winning potential, and long-term impact on your career. And right now, if you compare Indiana and Dallas purely from a trajectory standpoint, Indiana looks more appealing. They're building something. They have momentum. And with Caitlin Clark, they have arguably the biggest draw in the league. Let's not ignore that part either. Playing alongside Caitlin Clark doesn't just mean better basketball opportunities, it means exposure. It means sold-out arenas. It means national attention. It means your game is being seen, analyzed, and appreciated at a higher level. That matters for endorsements. That matters for legacy. Now, shifting back to Indiana for a second, the biggest concern isn't desire, it's execution. Because if you look at their recent free agency history, it hasn't exactly inspired confidence. They've leaned older. They've prioritized experience over athleticism and pace. And that creates a stylistic conflict because you have a young, fast-paced star in Caitlin Clark, and then you surround her with players who may not fully match that tempo. Even Sue Bird has talked about this concept. Teams that play fast, that embrace youth and athleticism, tend to have an edge. And if Indiana doesn't align their roster philosophy with their star players' strengths, they're going to cap their own ceiling. That's why Azura Stevens makes so much sense. She bridges that gap. She brings experience without sacrificing mobility. She fits modern basketball. But, again, it comes back to whether the front office can actually get it done. Because this is a moment. This is an opportunity to make a statement move, to show that you're serious about contending, to show that you're building around your core the right way. And if they miss out, not because they didn't want her, but because they couldn't structure the deal or move quickly enough, that's going to be a problem. Now, from Azura's perspective, the decision is actually pretty straightforward when you break it down. Option 1, chase the biggest contract possible regardless of situation. Option 2, balance money with opportunity, visibility, and competitive upside. Option 3, bet on yourself. Take a slightly smaller deal in the right system, perform at a high level, and cash in even bigger later. All three are valid, but given where she is in her career, I'd expect a blend of option 1 and 2. She's not going to ignore money, but she's also not going to walk into a bad situation just for a paycheck. And that's why this free agency is so fascinating, because there isn't one obvious destination. There are multiple pathways, each with pros and cons. But if we're being real, if Indiana can get anywhere close financially, they have a legitimate shot, a real shot. Because the fit is there, the spotlight is there, the trajectory is there. Now, whether they actually pull the trigger and close the deal, that's the big question. So yeah, Azura Stevens is going to have a massive market. Teams are going to come calling, and whoever lands her isn't just getting a good player, they're getting a piece that can elevate a system. And for Indiana specifically, this might be one of those defining off-season moments. Make your next move your best move. Because this one matters. Tell me what you think. Don't forget like and subscribe.